Welcome to Ginny's, where East meets West, and a slice of Eastern philosophy becomes a part of Western thinking. I'm your host, Ginny Gong. Addiction, a disease that impacts almost every segment of our society, hurts. Problems related to alcohol and drug abuse have extremely destructive effects on both the individual user as well as the entire family. And while Asian Americans are often perceived as the model minority and are dismissed and minimized as abusers, use among this population represents a real and prevalent problem. Addiction is at its highest levels in our nation's history. The numbers of those impacted are staggering. In 2010, an estimated 22.6 million Americans over the age of 12 were current or former drug users. That's 9% of our population. Over the last decade, the number of individuals taking illegal drugs rose by 500%, and death related to overdosing rose over 540%. The stigma of addiction in the Asian American community has resulted in an historical underutilization of professional mental health and treatment services. Raising awareness of the issue in the community is critical. Joining me today are two individuals who have been impacted by this disease. I commend both of them for their willingness to share their stories in the hope that it will help others with their personal journeys. First, I would like to welcome an internist whose approach to wellness is that it must be tailored to the individual. The cornerstone of his practice is to listen to his patients because they're probably telling him the diagnosis. A warm welcome to Ted Lee. Welcome, Ted.
Thank you, Ginny.
Thank you for joining me to discuss this very important topic. You know, in our community, no one really wants to talk about it, so it's really important to see faces and connect feelings with that. Let's begin by defining addiction. What is it?
Well, addiction is a behavior. It generally involves a mind-altering or mood-altering substance, although some addictions are just purely behaviors, such as gambling, for example. The striking thing, and I'm saying this not really as an expert, but as someone who has experienced it, is that the behavior is self-destructive, so that even though the person knows that it's hurting himself, herself, and their loved ones, they can't stop it.
So is it a disease? I know that has been a debate out there. Some say it is, some say, it's not. What do you think?
Well, I really do believe it is a disease. One is that the neuroscientists have really been able to map out the mechanism by which it occurs, how substances can hijack reward centers in the brain that trigger behavior. And these are normal, healthy reflexes. For example, if you exercise a lot, you feel really good because certain chemicals are released.
Right.
Well, instead, this can be hijacked by substances that give you that same feeling of well-being and reward that leads to craving. So there's that medical model, which is, I think, very well established, but then also there have been natural experiments, if you will, which is the fact that, for example, when opium was introduced to China, it affected a huge segment of the population, maybe 20% of the population, and it didn't make any difference whether you were educated, rich, or whatever.
Right. So when someone takes drugs, I know it impacts the brain, and to such an extent, I guess, that they don't realize, I guess the part of the brain that stops you from doing certain things, when you take drugs, it does something to that. Is that